Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our webinar, LTO6 Technology with LTFS in the media and storage industry. This is Christina Clapp from Digital Video Magazine, and I am here with Bruce Master, who is a Senior Program Manager of IBM Data Protection and Retention Systems as part of the LTO program, Päivi Vanan, who is Segment Marketing Manager of Quantum Corporation, also LTO program, and Laura Laredo, who is a Product Marketing Manager of Nearline Storage, Hewlett-Packard LTO program. So welcome, everyone. Today we'll be talking about LTO6 technology. As we know, in the media and entertainment industry, content is king. The majority of this content is now produced in digital form, while virtually all of this content is distributed digitally and amid growing demand for higher quality content such as HD and 4K. Digital data is rapidly growing in size and adding to production costs. So LTO digital tape has increasingly become an archive answer for producers, and now with the introduction of the linear tape file system, LTFS, archiving content to tape in the workflow can be as easy as using drag and drop with a USB data stick. So in this session, we will hear about the new generation of LTO Generation 6 technology, how LTO tape and LTFS can be incorporated into the digital production workflow, how LTO tape and LTFS can directly impact two major trends, having significant impact on digital media producers, the shift to file-based workflows, and ever-increasing storage demands. So first we'll hear from our presenters, then we'll open it up to your questions. You can submit questions at any time throughout the webinar by clicking on the Submit Question tab at the bottom of your screen, and then after we conclude the webinar, will be archived and available on demand from the digital video homepage at creativeplanetnetwork.com. So let's get started. Bruce.
Well, thank you, Christina. Good day to you all. And again, welcome to this LTO program seminar where you will learn how LTO tape and the amazing linear tape file system can help make storing essence or digital video content easier than ever before. Again, my name is Bruce Master, and I'm from IBM. And as mentioned, I'm joined by Laura Laredo from HP and Päivi Vanan from Quantum. And they'll both also be presenting a portion of this presentation. And together, we represent the LTO program, or AKA the LTO Consortium, also AKA the LTO Technology Provider Companies. And as you can see by this opening page, it is full of pictures and represents the marketplace segments where LTO and LTFS can be used together to preserve data content. Most any rich media or unstructured data is a good candidate, including digital video surveillance, media and entertainment, of course, banking images, music files, medical images, legal documents and evidence, cloud applications in the oil and gas industry and seismic exploration, government applications, high-performance computing, and much, much more. So with that in mind, let's turn to the next page. So LTO technology is used for backup and archive in all major industries, and now with the linear tape file system, it's easier to use than ever before. And in this presentation, we'll have a special focus on how LTO tape and LTFS can be used in the media and entertainment industry. Let's turn to the next page and we'll review what the LTO program or the technology provider companies is all about. So again, the TPCs is HP, IBM, and Quantum. And what we do is we write the LTO drive and cartridge media specifications. And then we also publish the LTO roadmap. The specifications are open to any organization that wants to purchase a license and then go and make product and have it independently certified that it meets the specifications. There are over 30 licensees with 5 media manufacturers, and LTFS for LTO5 and LTO6 standalone drives is a free download offered by HP, IBM, and Quantum. And the LTO program website, which is at www.lto.org, is where you'll find a wide assortment of white papers, customer use cases, an archive of program press releases, presentations, including this one, which will be up next week, videos describing LTFS, and much, much more. So let's look at the agenda for today on the next slide. So we'll cover the bits and bytes of the world of tape storage and LTFS. We'll discuss the reality of tape storage, some key storage issues today, the top 10 reasons why tape is an essential part of the storage hierarchy, and then we'll take a deep dive into what is LTFS, how does it work, how does LTO tape compare to the costs of other storage media, what are the benefits of LTO tape and LTFS, what other LTF offerings are available from a variety of vendors. We'll take a close look at several users who have implemented LTO tape with LTFS, and a close-up examination of the latest generation, LTO Generation 6 attributes. And then finally, how you can get started using LTO tape and LTFS. Let's turn to the next page and we'll review the realities of tape storage. So you may have heard some messaging that's out there. You know, for some time now, there have been messages that try to exclaim that tape is dead and users should only use disk for all of their storage needs. In other words, put all of your precious data eggs in one basket. The messaging tries to convince that tape storage is not easy to use, that it requires lots of people, and that it's difficult to operate, same cost as disks, and not as reliable as disks. And these are myths and seem to come from disk-only vendors that don't have tape in their offering portfolio. The reality is that tape can save costs, save energy, save the data, even the company, even a person's job. Let's explore these reasons why and turn to the next chart. So there are a variety of issues that can take place with any company, but these key issues that we're hearing from customers is that data is growing by leaps and bounds, some say 50% or more per year. Respondents in an IDG Enterprise Big Data Research Study in 2012 indicated the amount of data being managed per organization will increase by an average of 53% in the coming 12 to 18 months. And not all data is alike. Some data is hot and needs to be readily accessible in the short run, but as it cools off, it can be archived. And some data is cold to begin with and can be archived right away. Budgets aren't increasing along with the growth of data, so revised strategies are needed to control these costs. There are threats of corruption to data like viruses and natural causes. They're more present than ever. And backups are unwieldy and chewing up precious storage space. So the ability to transport large data from one location to another easily is key, and at low cost is really needed. The ultimate need to protect content, to repurpose assets, and virtually forever has become essential. So I mentioned not all data is alike. Let's take a look on the next slide. So statistically speaking, most data on enterprise networks rarely gets accessed after it is written to network storage. According to this study by the University of California at Santa Cruz, 90% of data written to network-attached storage was never accessed again in the first 90 days. Another 6.5% of the data was accessed only once. What this suggests in general is that files are that the files that are infrequently re-accessed should be moved to less costly and less energy-consuming storage like tape. So what can corrupt data? Let's take a look on the next slide. So data is the lifeblood of an organization and is constantly under the threat from a variety of causes. Some of the causes are accidental, like floods and fire. Some of the causes are intentional, like a vicious virus or hackers that destroy data. Many users think it can't happen here, but it can. In a Forrester research study, it was shown that 76% of the companies had experienced a disaster or disruption in the last 5 years. And those disruptions can be costly. Lost revenue, loss of productivity, all the way to the loss of the business. As a recent customer said, you can replace your hardware, but you cannot replace your data, so protect it. So let's look at a situation that could have been very costly on this next chart. Google was doing a software upgrade that had a bug in it, and it deleted thousands of email files on disk. The backup plan was disk replication. So the unexpected deletion of files on one set of disks was then replicated and deleted on the other disks. As described in the blog by Ben Traynor, VP of Engineering of Google Mail, they were able to recover the thousands of deleted files because they had a copy on LTO tape that was offline and not in the reach of the bug. So lesson learned in this case was that the online data is at risk of corruption. Users need offline storage with tape so that the data is not accessible by the system. This offline tape storage can protect against software errors, viruses, hackers, and disgruntled employees. This is an essential attribute of tape for outstanding data protection and why so many use tape and have used tape for decades, of course. Let's look at tape usage on this next chart. This slide shows open system tape cartridge shipments in capacity for the last decade, as reported by Santa Clara Consulting. This is where user data resides on the media. Over 5,300 petabytes or 5.3 exabytes of tape capacity was shipped in the fourth quarter of last year. Shipments in the fourth quarter were up 12.5% year on year, setting a new record, and over 99% of the tape shipments are LTO tape. So on this next chart, since the first LTO products became available back in the year 2000, when the program began, over 95 million miles of LTO tape have been shipped, enough to reach around the sun and start the return trip. Why is tape so hot and essential in the storage hierarchy? Well, let's take a look at the top 10 reasons on the next chart. So number one, tape costs less than any other digital storage. LTO tape is very attractive at only 2 cents per cartridge gigabyte compressed. And in a 12-year archive study by the Clipper Group, the average tape system compared to the average disk system, LTO tape was 15 times less expensive. We'll talk more on this in just a few minutes on that study. Number two, tape is easy to manage. An administrator can manage petabytes of tape data, but typically only 100 terabytes of disk data. Number three, tape is highly reliable for a number of technical reasons under the covers, like read after write verification, kind of like a confidence head, where every byte written to tape is compared to what is on the tape drive, what's on the tape is compared to what's in the tape drive buffer to make sure it's accurate before moving on. Servo tracking mechanisms are in each tape drive for precise tracking. And all of this gives tape a better bit error rate than disk. the bit error rate for LTO tape of 10 to the 17th power compared to enterprise SATA disk of 10 to the 15th are both good rates, but tape is 100 times better than disk. That is, in petabytes, there is typically only 1 bit error in 100 petabytes of tape and 1 bit error in every 1 petabyte of disk data. Number 4, a key best practice is to have system-isolated data storage or offline storage with tape to protect against the threats that can corrupt online data, as we discussed before. Number 5, tape is easy to use. Automated tape libraries make the handling of tape simple and requires no people to move tapes in and out of drives. LTFS, as you will see, makes tape files easy to view and access, like using a giant memory stick, if you will. And tape can be used in a NAS-like manner, and more on that in just a few minutes. Tape media has a very long shelf life, and unlike old tape formats, retentioning is not needed. 7, to increase tape storage, you don't have to add more drives or controllers like with disk. With tape, you can simply add more cartridges for, if you will, infinite capacity on demand. Tape storage has a very small carbon footprint. Tape drives have low energy consumption in use, and especially when idle. And tape cartridges in a slot or on a shelf draw no power. Number 9, big data makes the use of high-speed lines costly and time-consuming. Transporting tapes is easy and cost-effective. For example, you can put 20 LTO6 cartridges in a box, that is 50 terabytes uncompressed, and ship them from New York to Los Angeles in about 15 hours overnight for approximately $200. That works out to an effective transfer rate of over 4 terabytes per hour, or nearly 9 gigabits per second. That is low-cost, high bandwidth in a box. It's hard to beat. And last but not least, tape is fast. LTO6 data transfer rate, uncompressed, is 160 megabytes per second. It's faster than most disk drives, and each cartridge holds an impressive 2.5 terabytes native. And we'll have a lot more on LTO6 attributes just a little bit later. Okay, so now we know the realities of storing data and why tape storage is so important in the storage spectrum and the hierarchy. At this point, I'm going to thank you for your attention to this section, and I'll now turn this back over to Christina to introduce the next section. Christina?
Beautiful. Thank you, Bruce. All right, so if you're just joining us, we're in the middle of our webinar, LTO6 Technology with LTFS in the media and storage industry. Christina Clapp from Digital Video Magazine here. I'm with Bruce Master, who you just heard, Senior Program Manager of IBM Data Protection and Retention Systems and the LTO program, Päivi Vanan, who's the Segment Manager of Quantum Corporation, also LTO program, and Laura Laredo, who is a Product Marketing Manager of Nearline Storage, Hewlett-Packard at the LTO program. As a reminder, you can submit questions at any time throughout this presentation, clicking the Submit Question tab at the bottom of your screen. And now we'll get back to the presentation. Next up, we're going to hear from Laura.
Thank you, Christina. Good day, everybody. My name is Laura Laredo, and I'm from HP, but I'm here today representing the LTO program, and I'm going to talk to you about the linear tape file system. The LTFS software specification was first launched by the LTO program back in April 2010. It's an open standard specification, and the documentation is posted at the LTO.org site and can be downloaded from there. This LTFS specification has been adopted by the Storage Network Industry Association, best known as SNIA, for further development with an LTFS technical working group that includes engineers from our companies and the storage industry. The first SNIA LTFS draft is currently out for public review and feedback, and there is a link to this document in the LTO.org website. Before LTFS, a user needed proprietary backup software in order to be able to write to tape. Now, this same proprietary software was needed in order to read that tape back. This created, obviously, a dependency between the software and the tape, which in the future, after you archive the tape and in several years' time, when you want to go and read it, could cause some easy-of-use issues. Now, with LTFS, operating systems can recognize tape as being a storage device and as a file system. So tape can be easy to use, just as easy to use as a USB memory stick. No traditional application software is needed anymore in order to write to tape. The tape drive and its contents appear under the operating system browser as if it was a drive letter, saying C letter, any letter. Or they appear also as folders and subfolders, like the same way as directory tree structure. LTO generations 5 and 6 have the capability to create two partitions on the tape cartridge. LTFS uses that capability to create a small partition to hold the tape index and metadata, and then stores the big content file in the second larger partition. In addition, LTFS formatted cartridges can be interchanged between compatible drives and operating systems. Now let's have a look at the next slide and see how this can work. The linear tape file system format is a self-describing tape format. This format defines the organization of data and metadata on tape. And from there, files are then stored in a hierarchical directory structure. As mentioned earlier, uses the dual partitioning capability introduced with LTO Generation 5 and also available with LTO6 drives now. If we look at the graphic, the first partition used by LTFS stores the index and metadata information. The second partition is where all the content files are stored. When a cartridge is mounted into a tape drive, the index or metadata information on the first partition is read, and that data is copied in the workstation's memory. From that point on, the index is accessed and updated in the workstation memory for fast performance, so we can keep positioning in the content portion of the tape to quickly access the files. As we use the tape, the index is updated in the workstation memory again for fast performance, eliminating the need to keep going back to the beginning of the tape to update the information on the index. Now, to protect that index from the memory of the workstation, we copy it periodically in the content partition. So when we finish down with the tape, the index is copied once more at the last position used on tape, and then the tape is rewound, and the index is written into the first partition. So essentially, there are multiple copies of the index of tape for restoring in the unlikely event that the first partition index is not usable. Now, there is also an advantage of having these multiple copies of index throughout the content portion, because a user is able to recover the tape to a previous version. So, for example, imagine you want to recover data the way it was on Monday before you did some changes yesterday. So by choosing an index from Monday, you can go back to that version of the files. So let's see more on how LTFS works on the next slide. Again, the accessing a file is similar to access a file in a disk, a DVD, or USB thumb drive. You can use a operating system browser like Windows Explorer to access your data. And when you bring up the browser, you will see all the storage devices on your workstation, including your LTO tape drive. You can drill down through subdirectories, and you can do the same operations and you will do with a normal file. You can open the file, you can read it, append to it. Now, one thing we need to remember when we are doing all of this is the tape is a sequential device. So the tape media must move to the correct position in order to recover or write a file. On average, it can take between 40 to 60 seconds to reach the beginning of the file. But after locating the file, the data can be transferred up to 160 megabytes per second and compressed with an LTO6 drive. And that is very fast. In fact, that's faster than most disk systems can stream. Now, let's take a look at how this might work in automation. This screenshot shows an example of an LTO tape library using LTFS. The left side there shows the library as a storage device in the Windows Explorer directory. And from there, we can access all the LTFS formatted cartridges. As we drill down into the cartridges, we find all the folders and subfolders with all the directories within all those cartridges. And we can see all this structure without having to read all the contents of the tape, just the index partition. For example, this shows files storing feature-length, high-definition television series ranging in sizes from about 5 gigabytes to 14 gigabytes. This CSI Miami MPEG file is highlighted here with 5 gigabytes of data. So as you can see, using LTFS with a standalone tape drive or a tape library can be like accessing files in any other storage device. Now, this is a typical use of how LTFS could work in a tape library, but this may vary from vendor to vendor. So let's go on to the next slide and have a look at a summary of key uses of LTO and LTFS. With LTFS, you can now easily manage data on tape using drag and drop, cut and paste operations. You can confidently archive to tape and be assured it is offline and not susceptible to the corruption that can occur with online storage, like hackers, software errors, viruses. And you can share the tape across platforms, Mac, Windows, Linux, different vendors. Now let's have a look at some of these benefits more closely. Let's have a look at LTFS in the workflow for media and entertainment. As outlined in the MTMP paper, LTFS hits the mark for media and entertainment. there are three key application segments for LTO tape with LTFS. By the way, this is a white paper that is available at the LTO.org website. And MTMP will be presenting live at NAB on Wednesday, 10th of April at 2 p.m. So you can have a chance to listen to them there. I won't go through each item, but let's examine a few key areas. In production, a key usage that can have huge cost savings is camera media reuse. That is, instead of using P2 cards or XD CAM disk as the storage archive for original content, you can download the content to LTO tape for safekeeping and then reuse the cards or disks in the cameras. In post-production, LTO tape with LTFS provides a very dependable medium to access, share, and interchange content for editing or repurposing. And in distribution, LTO tape with LTFS is an excellent medium for low-cost transporting and sharing content. And remember, LTFS format makes LTO tape operating system, software, and hardware vendor agnostic. Data in LTFS format can be interchanged between Mac, Windows, and Linux operating systems, different LTO vendor drives, and any LTFS-supported applications. Now, let's have a look at some LTO tape costs compared. So the first chart there shows a comparison of various storage technologies used for essence or video content. This chart from the MTMP white paper shows gigabytes capacity, cost per unit, dollar per gigabyte. In the last column, it shows the dollar per gigabyte advantage for LTO tape, in this case LTO5 cartridges, were used for the comparison, as this was the technology used for this study. In each instance, there is an advantage for LTO5 tape. The dollar per gigabyte cost advantage for LTO5 tape is about 3 times over a G-Tech external hard drive, and this grows up to 350 times the advantage in terms of dollar per gigabyte over a P2 SSD card. LTO6 is now available, and with its increasing capacity totaling 2.5 terabytes are compressed, now has an approximate cost per cartridge of about 4 cents per gigabyte uncompressed. So it will have similar advantages as showing in this chart. In the next study, the Clipper group examined total cost of ownership for archiving data over 12 years in a SATA disk system compared to an LTO tape library system. Again, LTO5 was used for this study. The study included all hardware acquisition costs, maintenance costs, floor space costs, and energy costs. And they found that the disk system was about 15 times more costly than the LTO tape system. But most intriguing of all was that the energy alone to power and cool the disk system was more than the total cost of ownership of the tape system. Now let's think about this. If a disk-only vendor were to offer you the disk system for free, it will still cost you more than the tape system. Go green, go tape. The MTMP white paper and the Clipper group study, as well as their white paper, can be downloaded from the LTO program website at LTO.org. Now, there are many offerings available that use LTFS to create a self-describing tape. So let's take a look at some of these vendors and how they support LTFS in their offerings. The community of support for LTFS is outstanding. This chart is ever-growing and shows a variety of vendors that have offerings that support that have offerings and that support LTFS. The offerings vary from as simple as tracking where tapes are inside and outside the organization up to a full-blown workflow and archive system. Some vendors offering NAS-like functions, and most of them offer tape library support. And then all of them create a tape that is written with LTFS format, creating a self-describing cartridge which can be shared amongst any other LTFS-compatible system and easy to access in years to come. Now, for details of every specific product, you can contact the specific vendor. And at this point, I will thank you and return the presentation back to Christina.
Oh, thank you, Laura. All right, so if you're just joining us, we're in the midst of our webinar, LTO6 Technology with LTFS in the media and storage industry. As a reminder, you can submit questions at any time throughout the presentation. Just click on the Submit Question tab, and we will attack those after the final part of our presentation, which is coming up next. So we are going to hear from Päivi Juvonen, who is a segment manager of Quantum Corporation and part of the LTO program. So, Päivi, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Christina. Let me find the right slide here. Okay, operator, can you help me get to the right slide? Okay, just a second. I seem to be having some network issues here. Okay, PhotoCam, here we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I have a couple of very interesting use cases of LTFS. First, let's look at PhotoCam. They are a large lab and post-production provider in Burbank, California, providing services for a variety of media and entertainment clients, including large movie production studios and reality TV shows. They would take the XD-Cam discs from cameras, download the content to hard drives, and then archive the XD-Cam discs. This proved to be expensive and didn't provide reuse of the XD-Cam discs. They implemented LTFS on a small LTO tape library and found they could get 100 of the XD-Cam discs on one LTO5 cartridge. The XD-Cam discs could then be reused in cameras, providing significant cost and space savings. They make 2 copies of the low-cost LTO tapes and move one off-site for safekeeping of the original content. Okay, we are there on the right slide, and let's look at a music video producer on the next slide. Okay, this is BAM TV in San Francisco. They produce and distribute music videos. They would take the solid-state cards from cameras and download them to removable hard drives as part of their backup and archive process. They found that the removable hard drives had an unacceptable failure rate of about 8%. They implemented LTO5 tape with LTFS to replace the removable hard drives. The results are impressive. They slashed their storage costs by 75%, comparing the LTO tape with removable hard drives. And after 1 year, they had stored 80 petabytes on 60 LTO5 tapes with 0 tape failures. Okay, let's go to the next slide. We go now to Greece. Alpha TV in Athens, Greece, has a television station and a radio station. The TV content is a variety of news, entertainment, and movies. They were using Pro Video tape to store all original content and programming, and found it to be consuming shelves of space, in fact, consuming rooms of Pro Video tape storage. The Pro Video tapes themselves were costly, and the maintenance costs of the Pro Video tape decks were excessive. Alpha implemented a couple of LTO5 tape drives with LTFS to store original content from the cameras and to store an archive of movies on demand and programming content. They found the savings and benefits to be outstanding. They replaced all DVC Pro tapes and decks and can now store 3 times the number of television series at 1% of the media cost. The physical space to store tapes was reduced by 74%, and they lowered the storage maintenance cost by 77%. They have since installed 2 small LTO tape libraries supporting LTFS, one for news and one for archiving all programming. On the next slide, we have a few stories praising about LTFS and tape. At the top, the producers of Zero Duck 30 protected all the 276 hours of original footage for the movie by archiving it to LTO tape with LTFS. In the next article, Chris Mellor of the Register praises tape as the ultimate media for data archiving. Curtis Preston, known guru on backup and storage, discusses how tape is best suited for many tasks that it does better than disk, including archive, cost control, and longevity. George Crump from Storage Switzerland, he discusses how tape has higher reliability and is faster than most disk, and how LTFS has made tape even more portable. Now let's take a look at the next slide, what we are communicating for LTO. If you're feeling the need for more capacity and the need for speed, then LTO Generation 6 is the fix. You will see this advertising in popular online sites and magazines this year. Now, let's look at the details of LTO6 technology on the next slide. Okay, LTO6 technology is designed for an optimal blend of attributes: capacity, performance, compatibility, interchange, and cost control. Each cartridge can store 2.5 terabytes uncompressed or 6.25 terabytes with average compression. This is more than twice the compressed capacity of LTO5 tape. If you are using LTO4 tape, one LTO6 cartridge can store the contents of 3 LTO4 tapes. LTO6 drives are fast with up to 160 megabytes per second native transfer rate per drive to improve job productivity. That's a 43% increase over the LTO5 data rate compressed. LTO6 drive has backward compatibility with previous generations. It can read and write LTO5 cartridges and can read LTO4 cartridges to protect your investments and ease of implementation. LTO6 technology is impressive, and you may be asking, how can I get started using LTO tape and LTFS? Let's look at that on the next slide. So, how do you get started using LTO with LTFS? Step 1. Download the LTFS free software for a standalone drive from your drive vendor's website for use with your LTO5 or LTO6 tape drive. Again, LTFS is supported on versions of Linux, Mac, and Windows. Check with your vendor's specific OS version support. Step 2. Load the LTFS software one time onto your PC or Mac. Step 3. Format the tape with LTFS. It takes about 20 seconds. This creates the 2 partitions, one for the index and the other partition for the content folders and files. And step 4, the tape drive appears in your directory browser tree. Now you can start dragging and dropping files to and from the tape. So LTO technology and LTFS can address many applications in a variety of industry segments, including media and entertainment production, post-production, distribution and archiving, digital video surveillance archives, medical imaging storage of X-ray sonograms and the like, legal files and documents including evidence of videos, testimony and pictures, architectural drawings, oil and gas exploration images, cloud application, and much, much more. Now, this brings us to the last slide. Thank you for your attendance. Please come visit us at our booth at NAB in April in the South Hall and see live demonstrations of LTFS. We also hand out some really cool gifts. You can also learn lots more about LTO at trustlto.com, and you can see a 1-minute video of LTFS in action at the LTO.org site shown. Remember, tape safe, and thanks again for your participation. I will now turn the presentation back over to Christina.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Päivi. All right, so let's get to the questions, of which we have quite a few, and I'll just charge through them as quickly as I can as we are tight on time. If there are questions that we don't get to, Bruce and Laura will respond to you directly following the webinar. All right, so first question, let's hand it over to Päivi. Can I still download LTFS software for LTO6 drives for free?
Yes, it's free, and it can be downloaded from HP, IBM, and Quantum websites with support for LTO5 and LTO6 drives.
Beautiful. Okay, next up, Laura. I have some LTO5, LTFS written cartridges. Will an LTO6 drive read these cartridges?
Yes. LTO6 tape drives are read and write compatible with LTO5 cartridges. So your LTO6 drive will be able to read and write your LTO5 LTFS written cartridges. Also, LTO6 is compatible with LTO4 cartridges. Now, LTO4 didn't support LTFS because we didn't have partitioning at that time in the format, but an LTO6 drive will also read your normal LTO6 cartridges.
Okay, excellent. All right, Bruce, one for you. Let's see. Can LTFS cartridges be interchanged between hardware vendors, operating systems, and or applications?
Okay, yes, and this, of course, is one of the main advantages of LTO tape drive and LTFS. The LTO Ultrium Open Standard specifications are designed such that LTO tape cartridges can be read across all LTO-compliant manufacturers. LTFS builds on these LTO standards, allowing the individual files to be read from or written to compliant tape cartridges on compatible drives and compatible operating systems.
Okay, so next one is related. So, Bruce, let's hand this one over to you. For LTFS to work, is a special partitioning cartridge required?
No. The standard LTO5 or LTO6 cartridge media can be partitioned to work with LTFS, and an LTFS partition media can be unpartitioned back to a normal or standard LTO5 or LTO6 cartridge.
All right, beautiful. All right, onwards. Let's see. Lotta, can search and access programs like Axel present a virus threat to LTO data?
Well, LTO data is on a cartridge and is offline. It's not directly connected like a hard disk will be. So data on a cartridge is not susceptible to viruses. So you cannot be attacked by a virus the same way as a hard drive will be attacked.
Right. Okay. So there's another question that's almost identical. All right. So All right, so then, Bruce, let's hand over the next one. Would a file that is larger than a cartridge capacity size be able to, close my question window, be able to be spanned across multiple LTFS cartridges transparently, or would it need to be broken into smaller pieces by the user before being placed on LTFS storage?
Okay, it's an interesting question about file spanning, meaning, or cartridge spanning. When a file is too big to fit on one cartridge, would it automatically span to a second cartridge? The LTFS specification does not support that. Much like a disk drive, when it fills up, it doesn't support that spanning typically to another drive. It's simply a file system. That's what LTFS is. However, there is some software available from some of the vendors that were shown on the previous slide that via software can help or can provide the function of spanning across multiple cartridges, a file spanning across multiple cartridges and keeping that set of cartridges intact.
Okay. Let's see. Lara, next question. What are the specs for a PC server to feed LTO6 at minimum drive speed?
Ooh, that's probably too technical.
I feel like it was on a slide, but...
An LTO6 tape drive will stream at 160 megabytes per second, so you need a very powerful PC to stream that. But all the LTO manufacturers have some type of data rate matching where they will slow down to go closer to what the host can give to the drive. Normally, the drive is much faster than disks. So we need to slow down in order to fill the buffers and to carry on writing. So we accommodate to a slower host without having to stop writing and having to reposition. We will just write at a slower pace.
Okay. All right. All right.
I would recommend to go to your vendor and get some advice on what type of PC for whatever you need to use the tape drive for to get a server that will match your needs.
Got it. All right. So then how long does, well, it's sort of related, and Bruce, please jump in. How long does the format process take for LTO6 media? Okay,
to format a standard cartridge to be an LTFS capable cartridge, in other words, formatting it to have the two partitions, that's done with tools that are supplied with the LTFS software, and to do the format process takes typically less than 1 minute.
Okay, easy enough. Okay, and I think we have time for maybe one more question. Is the LTFS library version also free?
Well, I'll go ahead with that one also, since I've been speaking, and please chime in too, Lada or Privy, if you like, but depends on the vendor. So I think there are some versions of library capable versions of LTFS that are offered with no charge. Typically, it may depend on the size of the library that you have, and there are versions that do have a cost. That really is, it depends on the vendor for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. All right. Well, so perfect timing. I think we did it. All right. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining us. Thanks to Bruce, to Pivy, to Lara for their time and expertise. If you want to access any portion of this webinar, you'll be able to find it later today on creativeplanetnetwork.com. You can also be able to download a PDF of the presentation. So I think we did it. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.